Rock Hill, South Carolina, in the early morning hours of February 16, 2001. Melissa Motz's husband, Jimmy, tells police he stood and watched as his loving wife shot herself while seated in the passenger seat of their car. But it is not logical to Melissa's parents. Nothing, they believe, could have driven their daughter to take her own life.
Our daughter did not kill herself. I know that. There's not one doubt, not one, in my mind.
There were several things in Mr. Motz's story that I found hard to believe.
Charles Cabanis was in charge of the Rock Hill, South Carolina Police Department's homicide unit.
Mr. Motz indicates he hears a gunshot in the vehicle and actually sees smoke coming from the gun.
So I'm standing right about where Melissa would have been in the car, right?
Correct.
Here. But what Jimmy Motz may not have been counting on, say police, is that about 3 parking spaces away, smoking a cigarette, is Chris Campbell. Mr. Campbell is standing 45, 46 feet away.
That's correct.
What does he tell you he saw and heard at that time?
Yeah, he heard of absolutely nothing and no shots whatsoever.
So if she was shot...
Even with the windows up, I still felt like I would have heard something. It was very quiet outside. I was the only one standing there. It was late at night. It was quiet. And I've thought about it over and over many times. And I just feel like I would have heard a gunshot.
Both former prosecutor Tommy Pope and current prosecutor Kevin Brackett know the police believe Melissa was murdered. But here's why the prosecutors say they decide to let Jimmy Motz go free. First, they say any good defense attorney would pick apart their best witness, the man smoking a cigarette 46 feet away, who did not hear a shot at the time Melissa supposedly fired on herself in the closed car.
49 feet.
What is it about Jimmy Motz that convinced you he didn't do it?
Nothing convinced me he didn't do it. What convinced me was that I couldn't prove he did. I bear the burden of proof.
It's hard to argue that somebody 3.5 car widths away didn't see or hear a gunshot, isn't it?
A gun pressed to a temple or to a chin or to a body part, it may be a muffling issue. A gun is going to make a different sound here than it is out here.
If the gun is completely pressed up to her, does that do one thing? I mean, a gun into a pillow supposedly doesn't make any sound at all, or not much. I don't know.
The prosecutors never test that theory, however. So we decided to put a significant element of Jimmy Motz's story to the test. An experiment that could help clear up once and for all whether Melissa committed suicide or was murdered. We hired forensic firearms analyst Mike Haig. He couldn't fire a gun in that sleepy apartment complex in the middle of the night. But we did find the exact make, model, and year Ford Thunderbird that Jimmy and Melissa Motz were riding in the night of her death. Haig bought the exact gun, a .32 H&R Magnum revolver, and loaded it with the exact ammunition. We measure off the exact distance witness Chris Campbell says he was standing from Melissa Motz in that car. 46 feet. And Haig sets up a sensitive sound meter 46 feet away. So this is the microphone here on top?
It is. Right at the very tip is the actual microphone.
If there's any noise, it will accurately measure the sound of the gunshots. And as close as we can come to a flashback in that February night in a South Carolina parking lot in 2001. If there is no sound from a gun fired inside this car, it will add credibility to Jimmy Motz's story that Melissa shot herself, but a witness within 50 feet was not able to hear the sound. But if the shot is audible, it raises still more questions about where Melissa was shot and by whom.